Howdy folks, Kathy Williams-Devries here, and at a request from a subscriber, I'm presenting a video on the jazz clarinet techniques that I've used in my muck around with the play along guest spot CDs. So what I'm going to show you how I do is the glissandi between the notes, starting with the pitch bend, and then I'll show you you know, longer glisses, perhaps as much as the Gershwin, and then I'm going to show you the different types of vibrato, because there are several different types of vibrato a clarinetist can use with instruments like the flute and the recorder. It's mainly a breath vibrato because they don't obviously have an embouchure to muck around with. I use both actually. I use a jaw vibrato favoured by saxophone players, as well as breath vibrato, particularly on the throat notes because they don't bend quite so well. And you'll find that the pitch bend works. The pitch bend transfers to the jaw vibrato because you are in fact moving your jaw. So what I'm first going to show you is leading up to the glissando is the pitch bend, and it doesn't work on all notes, but I'll illustrate the best notes, particularly in the upper clarion and altissimo registers. I'll put a close-up on my mouth to show you what I'm doing. But basically we start with the pitch bend. Let's start on a top C. Now I used to be able to get down to about an A on my top C. If I what happens is you drop the jaw, destabilise the embouchure and move the back of the throat. So okay, so I can get down to a B flat. I'm not quite as supple as I was getting down to an A. So let's take a close-up of what I'm doing with my mouth. Okay, so from front on, and from the side, so that if you're, say, glissoing from a G to a C, and now I'll move back a little bit so you can see what my fingers are doing. So that a longer glissando, so that so let me give you a close-up on what's happening with the mouth. If you can see that, whether it's apparent. And let me just show you the fingers again. And at the end of the Copland concerto, I go off to a top D, but I do the open D because so notice that I move my fingers slowly over the keys so that it gives you a gradual, I hope you can see it from there. So that's the pitch bend and glissando for you. So what happens is that when you go to do a glissando between two notes, again, use the finger movement, but destabilize the embouchure at the same time that you're using the finger motion. And a trick, and this is especially in the Barrio sequenza, is that you have to gliss to a top E. What I do is I use the throat tones from the C. So for the C sharp, for the D, I use the G sharp. Then for the top E, I use the A key, still having the thumb on at the back. So and you can do a very slow glissando. And let me just pull that back so that you can see what's happening with my mouth. So we've got the pitch bend. You can also do a pitch bend simply with your throat. That gives it. And notice my mouth doesn't do a whole lot. Except I still use a little bit of the jaw. So that's glissando and pitch bends for you. It's really what works for you. I mean, obviously I've, you know, your teacher can tell you how to do something, but it's until you sit down and work it out yourself that you get what works for you. Now, vibrato comes out of the pitch bend. There's a few ways you can vibrato. Flute players use a breath vibrato because on their instrument, by changing the amplitude of the breath, it changes the pitch. Whereas in clarinet, if you use a breath vibrato, and in this case a breath vibrato is ha 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 ha, so ha 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 ha, and you can practice at different speeds. It works nicely on the throat tones actually. And take it slowly. And that's your breath vibrato. I know you can also do a throat vibrato. Unfortunately, I taught myself throat vibrato first, and then some goddamn flute player says, no, you have to use breath vibrato, so I taught myself out of it. So I don't find on the throat tones, I think the breath vibrato works really well because the jaw vibrato I don't find works quite so well. Jaw vibrato is where you go ya 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 ya, and you see it sort of comes out of pitch bend. It's not quite as it's not quite as much as that. So in something like the transcription of the Piazzolla tangos, you can use, I actually use a combination of both, because if you're going that's the jaw vibrato, and this is the breath vibrato. You know, it's also what sound you're after, whether you're after a really breathy vibrato or where you want to keep the tone, because sometimes the tone deteriorates a little bit when you use a jaw vibrato. I find the jaw vibrato best on the upper clarion and altissima. If you look at my Amazing Grace that I do with organ, I use a very wide jaw vibrato. And I'll just move that a little bit closer to you so you can see what's going on. And I'll turn to the side. And that's, look it up, Amazing Grace. It's one of my best recordings, or one of my favourite recordings. You might also want to look up my Copeland concerto I did a few months ago. And you need to pick your vibrato moments wisely. I probably wouldn't vibrato through Mozart or Beethoven. Maybe the slightest hint in Brahms, because apparently the clarinetist that Brahms wrote for did use quite extensive vibrato. But really sort of but that's up to you. But, yeah, so those are basically my techniques on how to do the pitch bend, glissando and jaw vibrato. You really have to find what works for you. I mean, I've been experimenting with vibrato for at least a decade, and probably close to a decade and a half. Actually 2 decades when it comes to glissando. But those are my techniques. If they work for you, great. Otherwise, you know, seek out a second opinion. I'm sure there's a million videos on YouTube on these techniques. This is just what works for me. So I hope you've gotten something. I don't know whether you can see how much my mouth, and you certainly can't see what the tongue and throat are doing, but well, that's my introduction to the person who requested the video. Hope you got something out of it. And as always, if any of you have the slightest question, you know, the easiest questions, the hardest questions, it's no problem for me to do a video. In fact, I enjoy it and it gives me something to think about. So yeah, keep those questions coming in, guys, whether via my YouTube channel, or you can email me on any of my email addresses, kathywilliamsdevries@bigpond.com, web clarinet lessons at gmail.com, and brisbaneclarinetist@gmail.com, and as always my website www.kathywilliams76.com. So thanks for listening, bye for now.